Hi, I'm Rowan, and the day my life ended didn't start with a gunshot. It started with a meeting. My stepfather, the CEO, shouted, "You've got 5 minutes to get out of my company." Security dragged me out while my mother just watched, silent. I remember saying only one word: thank you. But what none of them knew was that an hour later, the truth would walk right back into that same boardroom, sealed in an envelope. And when it opened, everything they'd built on lies began to fall apart. Because sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's the sound of revenge getting ready to speak. I never thought I'd be the kind of man to get escorted out of a room I helped build. But there I was, standing in the boardroom of Hale Industries, the room where I'd spent the last 10 years designing strategies, fixing budgets, and mentoring new hires. It smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. I stood still, my hands behind my back, trying to make sense of what Marcus had just said. "You've got 5 minutes to get out of my company." Not our company, my company. His voice didn't rise. No, Marcus Hale never yelled. He spoke like a man who'd already won the game and was just tidying up the board. I scanned the faces around the long oak table. Some avoided eye contact. Others stared with that awful mix of pity and relief. Glad it wasn't them. And then there was Elaine, my mother, sitting at his right like some porcelain statue. Not a glance, not a word. I almost laughed. Almost. The head of security took a step forward. I raised a hand to stop him. Not in defiance, just to signal I'd walk out on my own. There was no need to turn this into more of a spectacle. "Seriously?" I said, quieter than I intended. Marcus shrugged. "Business is business." That line, that empty, rotten line, the same one he used when he laid off 100 factory workers before Christmas. The same one he used when he forced my dad's old partner out with a non-compete clause buried in paragraph 17. Now he was using it on me, the son of the man who built this place from nothing. A hush fell over the room. Then I heard it, the click of a folder snapping shut. One of the assistants had just sealed the quarterly report I presented last week. Funny how that small sound cut deeper than anything else. It was the click that told me I was being filed away. Erased. I looked at Elaine again. My mother. I needed her to say something. Anything. To stand up and ask Marcus what the hell he was doing. To tell me this was all a misunderstanding. But she sat there, blinking slowly, hands clasped in her lap like she was at Sunday service. She didn't even flinch. "Funny how silence weighs more than words," I muttered. She didn't say a thing. Maybe that's what hurt most. The guards were closer now. I took a breath and stood straighter. There was only one card I had left: dignity. I wasn't going to give Marcus the satisfaction of watching me beg or rage. So I looked straight at him, and I said, clear and calm, "Thank you." One of the board members shifted uncomfortably. Another glanced at Marcus like maybe this wasn't as clean as they thought. Good. Let it fester. As I walked to the door, I passed the wall of portraits, the gallery of legacy. My father's photo used to hang dead center, all calm eyes and steady resolve. He used to say, "Protect what's right, no matter the cost." Except now, it was gone. In its place was Marcus's smug face, framed in brushed nickel. That was the last punch. Not the words, not the silence. That. I kept walking, through the hallway, past the interns whispering by the water cooler, past the receptionist, the one I helped pay tuition for when her FAFSA fell short. She looked up, opened her mouth, then closed it. What could she say? Out the main doors and into the drizzle. New York rain isn't like other rain. It doesn't fall. It needles you. Cold. Impatient. It makes everything feel more urgent, more exposed. I paused at the curb. Behind me, the glass of the building glared back. My reflection was faint. A ghost layered over the Hale Industries logo. I didn't lose a job today. I lost the last piece of family I had. And that's when I saw him. A man stood just a few feet away, his coat slick with rain, a leather portfolio tucked under his arm. He looked older than I remembered, but the face was the same. Sharp eyes, tightly pressed lips. It was Bennett Cole, the company's former legal director, the only man my father ever truly trusted with his affairs. He stepped forward, holding out a sealed envelope. He held it like something sacred. A sealed envelope, stamped in red wax. Clive didn't say a word at first. He just looked at me, eyes steady, tired, like he'd been waiting too long to do this. The envelope in his hand seemed to pull the air around it inward, as if even the rain didn't dare touch it. "My car's around the corner," he said quietly. "Walk with me." We moved without speaking, just the sound of our steps in puddles and the distant screech of a bus turning the block. I had a dozen questions clawing at my throat, but none of them felt ready. So I waited. Clive opened the back door of a black sedan and motioned for me to get in. I slid onto the seat, and only then did he hand me the envelope. The seal was unmistakable. Red wax, cleanly stamped with the old crest. My father's family seal. The one he used for personal letters, trust documents, and his will. Clive sat beside me and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Your father never signed the version they showed the board," he said. I stared at the envelope, like it might detonate. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice thinner than I expected. He didn't flinch. "Marcus and your mother presented a forged will. After your father passed, they used it to make Marcus co-owner. But this," he nodded to the envelope, "this is the original, signed, notarized, sealed by your father himself, 2 days before he went into surgery." The car suddenly felt smaller. I wanted to open it. I didn't. If Clive was right, this wasn't just a document. It was the match that could burn down everything they'd built on a lie. But what if he was wrong? "If it's real, everything changes," I muttered. "If it's not, I've lost the last thing that meant something." I didn't notice my hand shaking until the wax pressed into my thumb. I placed the envelope gently on my lap, unbroken. The seal stared up at me like an eye, waiting. We didn't say much more. Clive gave me his card, told me where I could reach him. A law office in Brooklyn he'd quietly reopened under his wife's name. Then he stepped out into the rain and disappeared into the city like he'd never been there. I didn't go home right away. I walked for blocks. The streets blurred past, storefronts, diners, the occasional bark of a cab driver cursing traffic. I kept the envelope tucked into my coat, close to my chest like it might slip away if I loosened my grip. Hours later, I found myself in my apartment, flipping on the kitchen light that buzzed for 3 seconds before staying on. I tossed my wet coat on the rack, placed the envelope carefully on the kitchen counter, and stared at it as I poured stale coffee from the pot. It was cold, bitter, and exactly what I needed. I tried cleaning the sink, then the fridge, then the bookshelf, half of which still held engineering textbooks and a few dusty photo albums. Nothing stuck. My mind kept looping back to one moment. Her eyes. Elaine. My mother. The way she looked right through me in that boardroom. Like I was just another inconvenience. Not her son. Not the boy who once held her hand during thunderstorms because she said lightning made her nervous. I sank into the couch and let the weight settle. I used to think silence was peace, I said aloud, though no one was there to hear it. Turns out, it's just the sound of someone choosing not to care. Eventually, I set the coffee down and opened the voice memo app on my phone. I didn't plan on sending it. I just needed to hear myself. My name's still on the blueprints, I said. My hands built what they're stealing. I don't care what Marcus says. I was there. I was in the room. I made those deals, those partnerships. The company didn't make me. I helped make the company. I hit save. No title. Just saved. It was almost 1 a.m. when the buzz came in. A message. From Darla. One of the only board assistants who'd ever treated me like more than a name on an office door. She wrote, Marcus is holding a press conference in the morning. He's calling you unstable. Says you broke down during the board meeting. Claims you were removed for mental health reasons. I didn't move for a full minute. So this was the next move. Smear me. Paint me as erratic. Discredit me before I could even open my mouth. I leaned back, looked at the envelope still sitting on the desk across the room. I had been afraid to open it. Not anymore. Maybe truth doesn't save you. Maybe it just ruins the right people. I stood, walked over, picked up the letter opener from the drawer. The blade slipped under the seal, and that sound. It felt like opening a grave. The paper resisted slightly before giving way. That click, sharp, deliberate, echoed louder than it should have. It was the same sound Marcus made when he snapped that folder shut in the boardroom, except this time I was the one holding the power. I didn't flinch. Inside the envelope was a single sheet, aged but intact, folded with the kind of care that only comes when something matters. My breath stalled as I unfolded it slowly. The lines were crisp, the ink faded at the edges. The notary seal was clean. My father's signature unmistakable. Neat, controlled, proud, like everything he ever built. There was no ambiguity, no corporate spin. The entirety of the Vexler estate and holdings, including Vexler Engineering, are to be transferred upon my death to Rowan Elias Vexler, my son and sole heir. My fingers trembled. I'd spent so long wondering if I was crazy. If maybe, somehow, Marcus had always been the rightful heir. But this was real. And it made everything I'd felt since the boardroom not only justified, but prophetic. And then I saw it. A note, handwritten in the margin. A different kind of ink. A different kind of weight. If you're reading this, it means they've tried to take what's yours. Don't fight them with anger. Use truth. It's slower, but it never loses. It was his handwriting. I knew it instantly. The slight tilt, the way he curled the Y like a fishhook. I'd seen it on birthday cards, post-it notes on the fridge, blueprints. Now it was here, reaching out from years ago like a hand across time. I sat back in the chair, the document still open on my lap, and closed my eyes. The night before he passed, I'd sat with him at the hospital. He was hooked up to machines, his chest rising in small mechanical lifts. He'd barely had the strength to speak, but he managed a whisper. Don't let them silence you, son. Not again. At the time, I thought he meant politics at the office. I nodded, told him to rest, but now I understood. He knew. He knew what Elaine and Marcus were capable of. He saw it coming, and he tried, in the quiet way only he could, to leave me a weapon. I opened my eyes, expecting some wave of relief, vindication, maybe even a bitter smile. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt small, hollow, like I'd stepped into a story I should have seen coming but didn't. I thought I'd feel vindicated, I said aloud. Instead, I just felt small, because every word proved he saw this coming, and I didn't. I folded the will with more care than I thought I had left in me. I placed it gently next to the old pocket watch of his that I'd kept on my shelf for years. Still broken, still stuck at 4:26 p.m., the moment he died. Time and truth. Both just sat there, waiting. But then reality crept back in. Marcus, Elaine. They had forged documents. They stood in front of an entire board of directors and lied without blinking. That meant one thing. They knew about this will. They just chose to bury it, which meant Elaine wasn't just silent. She was complicit. My throat tightened as I replayed her face from that boardroom. Not shocked, not confused, just blank, cold, like none of it mattered. The weight of that betrayal hit harder than anything Marcus had ever said to me. It was after 2 a.m. when my phone rang. Clive. "They're locking down the company archives tonight," he said without preamble. "Anything with your father's name on it is being flagged for deletion. Emails, drafts, contracts, digital records. They're scrubbing everything." My pulse jumped. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Because Marcus knows we're on to him," Clive replied. "He's not waiting to be exposed. He's erasing the past while you're still catching your breath." Not anymore. I stood and moved quickly, pulled the printer from the corner of my living room, powered it on. I made 5 clean copies of the will. I scanned one into my laptop, encrypted it, and uploaded it to 2 separate cloud drives, both under aliases I created years ago during a cybersecurity contract job. Then I slipped the original will into a fireproof bag and shoved it into my briefcase. 15 minutes later, I was outside, calling for a rideshare. The driver took me to a 24-hour bank branch downtown, one of the few still offering safety deposit boxes with real physical keys. It took half an hour to open a new account, sign the paperwork, and store the will under lock and key. I didn't relax until the metal door slammed shut. I walked back out onto the sidewalk just as the sun began brushing the edges of the sky. The city was waking up. People huddled around carts for coffee. Street sweepers cleared away last night's noise. And for the first time, I felt it. Not anger, not panic. Something sharper, steelier, clarity. "They thought I'd break," I whispered, watching steam rise from the grate beside me. But I was raised by a man who built legacies from silence. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting Clive again. Instead, it was a public post from the company's press page. Bold headline, "Vexler Board responds to allegations. Former executive Rowan Vexler under investigation for embezzlement." I stared at the screen, my name, my face, and a lie that was now global. Marcus wasn't just trying to erase me. He was trying to poison the memory of me. And then, something unexpected happened. I smiled. They were making their first mistake, and it was going to cost them more than they imagined. Morning light broke through the blinds like a slow betrayal, cutting across the half-empty mug on my kitchen counter. I hadn't slept. The hum of the city below never stopped, but this morning it felt different, like the ground beneath me was waiting to shift. My phone buzzed again, and again, dozens of notifications, missed calls, subject lines screaming in caps. "You okay?" "What's going on?" "CNBC, turn it on." I did. The video was already midstream when the screen loaded. Marcus Hale stood behind a podium, the company logo glowing behind him, flanked by an American flag like he was running for office instead of covering his tracks. His voice, calm, rehearsed, nauseating, filled my apartment. "It breaks my heart," he said, "to confirm that my stepson, Rowan Vexler, misused company funds over several years. While we're still reviewing the scope of the damage, we believe this stems from deeper, unresolved personal struggles. We wish him well in his recovery." That word, recovery, made me flinch. Not just because of what it implied, but because of how carefully he said it. Like it was sympathy. Like this was concern. But it wasn't. It was a public execution dressed up as a father's sorrow. Then the camera panned slightly. Elaine, my mother, standing beside him, hand on his arm, nodding, like it was all true. Like I was a ghost they'd already buried. I froze the video mid-frame. Her eyes, those same hollow, distant eyes from the boardroom, stared just past the camera. I leaned forward, studying her expression, trying to find a flicker of conflict. Nothing. Just that same perfect silence she always used to avoid truth. "Same eyes, same silence," I whispered, only this time the whole world saw it. I closed the laptop. More messages came through. Some from former colleagues, some from people I hadn't heard from in years. A few were sympathetic, cautious. "Hey man, just saw the news. Hope you're okay." Others weren't even that. "You know how this works, right? The media decides the story. I can't get involved." I didn't respond. I sat in silence, letting the echo of Marcus's words replay in my head. I could have released the will right then, uploaded it, sent it to every journalist on the East Coast. Let the truth do the talking. But then I remembered what my father wrote. Use truth. It's slower, but it never loses. I wasn't going to fight him on Marcus's terms. He thrived on drama, noise, fire, spectacle. That's why he moved fast. He wanted a reaction. He needed it. I wasn't going to give it to him. Not yet. By noon, I was sitting at a rooftop cafe in Soho, wind sliding over the glass rails, my coffee untouched. Clive slid into the seat across from me, sunglasses on, looking 10 years older than the last time I saw him in a courtroom. "You didn't sleep," he said. I didn't answer, just handed him a printout of the will, the scanned version, not the original. He looked it over, slow and deliberate. "It's clean. Better than clean. If this drops, Marcus is done. He knows something's out there," I said. "That's why he's rushing, trying to bury me before I can surface." Clive leaned in. Let him keep digging. I've started tracing the digital fingerprints behind that fake will they submitted. The notary, dead. The witness, moved to Thailand 2 weeks after the signing date. No one's asked questions yet. I nodded slowly, staring past him toward the skyline. "And Elaine?" Clive hesitated. "She signed off on everything." "Of course she did." He leaned back. "If he suspects what you have, he won't just come after your name. He'll come after you. You need to stay invisible." I looked at him. "I don't want invisible. I want precision." "You get caught rushing this, Rowan. It all falls apart. Let them bury themselves." He stood, dropped a flash drive on the table, and left. The sun had dropped lower by the time I walked back to my apartment. On the way up, I passed a couple with their toddler, arguing about nap schedules. The normalcy of it stung. I used to believe in that kind of life. Believed maybe one day I'd build something with someone. Instead, I was cleaning up my family's sins with a lawyer and a scanned document. I sat at my desk, opened my phone, scrolled through my photo archive. Years of pictures, holidays, fundraisers, family trips, all pretending to be something we weren't. I deleted them, one by one. But I kept one. A photo from the Vexler Tower groundbreaking ceremony. My mother, holding my father's hand. She was smiling, genuinely, proud. I uploaded it to a private folder, captioned it, "The last time she looked proud of me." A knock on the window behind me made me turn. It wasn't a knock, really. More like a presence. That feeling you get when something shifts around you. I stepped onto my small balcony, looked down. A black sedan was parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine humming, watching, waiting. I backed into my apartment slowly. My phone vibrated on the counter. No name, just a number. No message, just 5 words. "We know what you have." They weren't just defending a lie anymore. They were afraid of the truth. And fear makes people careless. It was just past 10 p.m. when I got back to my building. I hadn't planned on being out that long, but after Clive and I parted ways, I took the long way home. A walk that looped through the village, past dim bookstore windows and closed cafes. I needed air, time, silence. But when the elevator doors opened on my floor, something felt off. Too quiet. The hallway always had a soft buzz. TVs behind doors, someone pacing on a phone call, the neighbor's dog barking at nothing. But tonight, nothing. Just the low hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the sharp smell of cleaner that didn't belong. I stopped in front of my door. The lock looked scratched. Barely. Just enough to raise suspicion in someone who knew what to look for. I slid my key in and turned it slowly. Inside, the lights were still off. Moonlight filtered through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the living room floor. My shoes made no sound on the hardwood, but the silence was loud in my ears. Drawers were open, couch cushions tossed, a lamp on the floor, shade cracked. The desk where I kept nothing of real value, had been ransacked. Pages scattered like confetti, cabinet doors swung slightly on their hinges, and then I smelled it. Cologne, not mine. Something darker, expensive, arrogant. I closed the door behind me, and the latch clicked into place, sharp, final. Same sound Marcus made when he closed the folder in that boardroom. Same sound the wax seal made when I broke it. That sound was everywhere now. Every click used to mean they were in control. Now it reminded me they were desperate. I walked to the desk, nudging aside papers, checking the envelope drawer. Gone. The copy of my father's will was missing. Not the original. That was safe. Tucked away in a safety deposit box 3 subway stops from here. But this one, it was bait. I left it out on purpose. They took it, which meant they were watching me, which meant they knew I knew. This wasn't a robbery. It was a message. I crouched near the wall, back against the cabinet, just breathing, slow and deep, counting in my head. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. No panic, no reaction. That's what they wanted. They wanted me rattled. So I made sure that's all they got. I didn't call the police. What was I going to say? "Hi, I think my billionaire stepfather hired someone to intimidate me with cologne and broken lamps." They'd file a report and forget about it. I wasn't giving Marcus anything to twist. Instead, I started cleaning. Quietly, methodically. When I lifted a broken picture frame from the floor, I stopped. It was a photo of me and my mother. She was holding me, maybe 4 years old. Our backyard in the background. Her smile natural and warm. The kind you don't fake. The glass had splintered right across her face. I stared at it for a while. Even the universe had opinions about her. Now, my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. A voice I recognized. Marcus's assistant, the one who never used to meet my eyes in the hallway. Her voice was shaky. "He's losing it," she whispered. "He's drinking more, screaming at the staff. He said, if you don't destroy that document, he'll make your mother pay for it." I let the silence hang. 5 seconds. 10. Then I said, "He already has." I hung up. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't scream. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, sat on the floor with my back to the refrigerator. And I let it go. Not the anger, the fear. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I realized something. Fear is a choice. It's not a reflex. It's a story you agree to keep telling yourself. And I was done telling it. I pulled the laptop onto my lap and started building. Not a revenge plan, a case, timelines, transaction histories, bank records, every board signature Marcus had ever faked, every call log, every paper trail. I created backups, encrypted folders, set email triggers. I wasn't just documenting, I was preparing. Around 2 a.m., a new message lit up the corner of my screen. From Elaine. Just one sentence. "Please stop. You're making things worse." I stared at it, unread. She wasn't wrong. I just stopped caring. By 3, the apartment was back in order. No sign of what had happened except the frame. I left that one where it was, face down on the desk. A reminder. I didn't sleep. Just sat by the window, city lights bouncing off glass, washing the skyline in electric fog. My reflection stared back at me. No fear, no tremble. They wanted to erase me. Instead, they wrote my motive. Next morning, I walked into the one place they thought I'd never return. The company's boardroom. The sun had barely cleared the skyline when I stepped through the revolving doors of Vexler Industries. A security guard, young, new, probably not around when my name still held weight here, stiffened behind the front desk. His hand hovered over the phone. I didn't stop walking. He called out, "Sir, I think you need clearance." I glanced at him, not coldly. Just enough for him to recognize something in my eyes. Maybe not authority, but purpose. He didn't pick up the phone. My shoes echoed against the marble floor I once fought to have installed. Elaine hated the finish, said it was too sterile. My father had loved it, said it reminded him of clean slates. Clean slates, I thought. What a cruel joke. I passed the familiar halls, the same hallway portraits. Only now my father's photo had been moved near the restrooms, small frame, lower wall, nearly hidden. I took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, I walked straight into the boardroom. No knock, no pause. Mid-meeting. 12 people in suits turned at once. Marcus was standing, mid-sentence. Elaine sat to his right. Her shoulders stiffened the moment she saw me. Marcus didn't miss a beat. This company has always been about integrity. Then you won't mind if I test that statement. My voice didn't rise. I wasn't angry. I was done giving them that. I walked to the long table and placed a small flash drive in front of him. Dead center. Marcus glanced at it, then back at me, his mouth tightening. His voice shifted, oily calm. "You're trespassing, Rowan." I looked at the board, then at him. That drive contains records of financial transfers, offshore accounts, all under my name, set up by your people, neatly disguised until you got careless. A wave of murmurs broke out. I didn't flinch. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for making it so easy to trace." Same words I'd whispered when they threw me out, but this time they landed differently. The silence in the room was heavy, not because of tension, but realization. Elaine looked away. She always did that, right before the truth hit, like she couldn't bear to watch the moment unravel. I could feel Marcus shift. He was reaching for his playbook. He pulled out a remote, aimed it at the monitor behind him. A video began to play, grainy security footage of me entering the building late one night. He paused it mid-frame. "This," he said, "is from 3 months ago. Rowan broke into company systems, sabotaged files. We have it all on camera." He leaned back like a magician revealing the trick. But this wasn't magic. I didn't even blink. "That footage is time-stamped 2 weeks after your IT director began editing archive metadata," I said. "You're welcome to dig deeper. I already sent the unedited logs to federal auditors." The air changed. Someone near the window coughed. Another board member slowly pushed their chair back, distancing themselves, not from me, but from Marcus. "And this meeting," I continued, "it's being recorded, live." Marcus's hand twitched. He reached for the pen on the table. Click. That sound again. But this time, it wasn't control. It was panic, dressed up as composure. I picked up the flash drive and slid it toward him. "Keep it. You'll need a souvenir." Elaine turned toward me for the first time, eyes glossed, but unreadable. I didn't look away. I wasn't trying to win. I was here to reclaim something they'd stolen before they touched the company. My name. I stepped back from the table, paused at the door. "You once said I didn't belong here," I said, my voice steady. "You were right. I'm what built this place, not what owns it." I opened the door. Marcus's voice snapped from behind. "You'll regret this." I didn't turn around. "Regret?" I said softly. "That was your department." Outside the conference room, the elevator door was already open, as if waiting. When I stepped in, I saw her, a woman I didn't recognize, standing near reception, phone in hand, microphone clipped to her collar. Press badge. Somebody had tipped them off. Good, because by sundown, my silence was national news. I didn't need to speak. The media did what it does best: fill in the gaps with slow-motion replays and voices pretending to understand what they'd just witnessed. Footage of Marcus slamming the boardroom table made every major network before dinner. The same anchors who once quoted him like scripture now dissected every twitch of his jaw. I sat on the couch alone, TV muted. The clip played over and over, Marcus's hand trembling, Elaine's eyes darting to the floor. CNBC labeled it the 110 billion betrayal. Another network called it Vexler's implosion. The headlines weren't subtle. They weren't meant to be. Stock prices dipped like someone had pulled the rug halfway out. Emergency meetings were called. Shareholders demanded audits. And in a limp attempt to soften the blow, Marcus issued a 2-line statement to the press. It was a family misunderstanding. We ask for privacy as we resolve internal matters. The board didn't buy it. By nightfall, he was suspended indefinitely. I turned the TV off and let the silence sink in. Funny thing, after all the noise they made trying to bury me, it was their silence I heard now. Mine had been replaced. I'd expected victory to feel like oxygen, but it didn't. It felt like static, loud in my chest, empty in my hands. Then the phone rang. I stared at the screen for a long second before picking up. Elaine. Her voice was thin. I could hear the faint echo of a room too big for the person left in it. "You humiliated him," she whispered. "He did that himself," I said. "You've become just like him." Those words hit differently. Not sharp like a blade, dull like something old and rusted but still dangerous. She didn't wait for my response, and I didn't offer one. I ended the call mid-sentence. Her silence hurt more when it had sound. If becoming strong looks like him, I muttered into the dark, I'd rather stay broken. I was still staring at the black screen when Clive's name lit up next. Rowan, he said without greeting. The auditors found more. I leaned forward, already knowing where this was headed. They traced the falsified notarization. The original will, your father's, had been locked in escrow with a firm in Delaware. Their legal director filed it this morning. It's done. It's official. My father's estate, the company, everything he meant to pass on, all mine. It didn't feel like a win. Not yet. I walked to the window. The city below flickered like it always did. 1,000 lives happening without noticing one man standing in a room above them. I whispered, more to myself than to the sky, all this, and still no one claps. I didn't want applause, but part of me thought maybe justice came with some sound. A sign. Instead, it came with a text. From Clive. You've won. But she's leaving him tonight. Don't let her do it alone. I didn't even change clothes. I grabbed my coat, keys, and left. The drive out to Marcus and Elaine's estate took 20 minutes. My hands tightened on the wheel at every red light. I didn't know what I'd find. Anger, a trap, or some broken version of closure I didn't ask for. But when I turned the corner onto their street, the flashing lights answered for me. 2 police cruisers were parked in front of the gate. 1 unmarked sedan. A crowd of neighbors gathered like moths to sirens. I pulled over and walked the rest of the way. Marcus was being led down the front steps, shouting things no one was listening to. His tie was half loosened, face blotched red, hair uncombed. The very image of a man who'd lived too long believing himself untouchable. Elaine stood off to the side. A single suitcase rested by her feet. She wasn't crying. Her expression was unreadable, like the quiet before a storm that never arrives. She looked up and saw me. First time in years our eyes met without glass or distance between us. It's over, she said. Her voice barely carried over the chaos behind her. I walked closer. No, I said, calm. It's just started. For both of us. She looked away, down at the suitcase like it was the only thing she still owned. The truth hadn't set anyone free yet, but it had started breaking the locks. The next morning, sunlight bled through the tall windows of the boardroom like it always did. Soft, clean, merciless. The table looked the same. The chairs sat in perfect formation. But something was missing. Marcus's nameplate. I stood where he used to sit, not out of ego, just to feel the space. How much weight one chair could carry when it belonged to the wrong man. The marble underfoot echoed less than before. Maybe it was just me. Maybe it was finally quiet. The door opened with a faint hiss. The legal director stepped in, his posture careful but not tense like last time. He carried a thin, sealed envelope, cream-colored, embossed with gold at the corner. "It's over, Mr. Vexler," he said. "It's officially yours." He placed the envelope in front of me. I didn't move to touch it. Didn't need to. I already knew what it said, I replied quietly. It's not about ownership anymore. He nodded once and left the room without a word. The paper sat there, untouched, sealed, like a time capsule finally coming home. My fingers moved almost instinctively. The wax gave way with a soft click, not sharp like before, not violent, just final. That sound no longer haunted me. It didn't belong to them anymore. I opened the envelope and gently laid the contents on the table. The notarized version of my father's real will, the original, the one Marcus tried to erase from the world and from me. Beside it, I placed the old wristwatch I now wore every day, my father's. It ticked quietly, steady, patient. 2 artifacts side by side, time and truth, at last, reunited. Across the room, someone shifted in their chair. Elaine. She sat small, almost folded into herself. She looked older in the daylight, her hands clasped so tightly they trembled. I didn't know how to stop him, she said, eyes fixed on the table. You didn't have to, I said. You just had to see me. That was all I ever wanted, for her to see who I'd become, not the man Marcus painted, not the child she abandoned in silence. Her lips parted, but no words came, just tears, soft, silent, and too late. I didn't forgive her. I didn't hate her either. What I felt was more complicated, like remembering a song you once loved but couldn't listen to anymore. I nodded, almost to myself. That was enough. I turned toward the board, my board now. Men and women who once looked through me now waited, some with guarded eyes, some with curiosity, a few with hope. I didn't speak about Marcus, or Elaine, or even my father. I spoke about us. This company was built on legacy, I began, but somewhere along the way, we mistook legacy for ego. My father built something with quiet hands. My stepfather built something with noise. I'm here to rebuild what matters, not power, but trust. Not a single person clapped, but every eye held mine, and that was enough. The meeting dissolved gradually, people filing out with fewer whispers than before. I stayed behind, watching the room empty, letting the silence linger. It didn't sting now. It simply existed. After a while, I stepped outside. The city spread below, unapologetic and endless. My father used to say this view made him feel both small and significant at once. Now I understood what he meant. A notification lit up on my phone. One unread message. From him. The last one he ever sent. Proud of you, son. Don't let them turn you into one of them. I hadn't opened it until now. A soft smile pulled at the corner of my mouth. No tears, no weight, just a fullness I didn't know I'd missed. The elevator dinged behind me. Mr. Vexler? I turned. A young intern stood in the doorway, wide-eyed, holding a clipboard. There's someone from the Justice Department downstairs. They say it's about your stepfather. I glanced one last time out the window. Then let's finish this right, I said, adjusting my coat. The past had lost its grip. It wasn't about Marcus anymore. It was about what came next. Justice doesn't knock twice. So I made sure to open the door. The air inside the courthouse was cold in a different way. Not cruel, not unfriendly. Just exact. It smelled like polished wood, old marble, and paper. The kind of place where people say things under oath they never said in private. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. I needed the time. Each step up felt like peeling off another layer of the past. One lie, one silence, one betrayal at a time. The courtroom wasn't full. No press, no cameras, just process. I sat straight, hands resting on the bench, heart steady. Marcus was already seated across the room, flanked by 2 lawyers in matching gray. His posture looked like someone trying to remember how to sit like a person with power. He didn't look at me. That told me enough. The judge called my name. I rose, walked to the stand, and spoke. I told them about the night I found the forged will, about the digital fingerprints Clive traced, about the offshore accounts Marcus funneled funds into, all while painting me as unstable, reckless. I presented the folder my father left behind. Every document was a nail, not in a coffin, but in a mask finally falling off. They played the recording next. Marcus's voice, low and impatient, giving instructions to get the paperwork done, make it clean, don't leave a trail. Then came the sound. Click. The pen. The same pen he used at meetings, at home, in courtrooms like this. The same sound that followed me for years. From childhood dinners to boardroom betrayals. That little click had always meant you don't get to speak. But today, that same click sealed his fate. Every noise that once controlled me now set me free. When I stepped down, Elaine stood to take her place. Her hands shook as she gripped the railing, her eyes scanning the room like she didn't belong anywhere in it. "I knew," she said. Her voice didn't crack. It fractured. "I didn't forge anything, but I knew he did. I didn't stop him because I was afraid." She paused, then added quietly, "Afraid of losing what I never really had." The courtroom didn't gasp. No one moved. No applause. Just the truth. And sometimes that's louder than any headline. As she stepped down, she passed by me. She didn't stop. Didn't beg. Just looked. Like she was hoping I'd say something to make it easier. I didn't. But I nodded. That was enough. Outside, the sun hit different. Reporters swarmed like bees on a broken hive. Flashbulbs popped. Questions flew like darts. "Mr. Vexler, will you return as CEO? Is it true the estate is now fully in your name? What are your next steps?" I waited until the noise dipped just enough to be heard. "It was never about taking anything back," I said. "It was about not letting them take me." I walked through the crowd like it didn't matter, because it didn't. A block down, a street musician sat at the edge of the sidewalk, playing an old upright piano that had seen better decades. His fingers danced over chipped keys. The tune was familiar. Soft, simple. My father used to hum it when he worked late in his study. I stopped. My hand instinctively reached into my coat pocket. Inside, I still carried the old keychain. The one from my first bike, the one he fixed after I crashed into the mailbox. The metal was bent, worn. It hadn't held a key in years. Just memories. I dropped it into the open case beside the piano. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be released. I kept walking. For years, silence was my punishment. The quiet in our house after my father died. The hush in the boardroom when I questioned Marcus. The stillness in Elaine's eyes every time she didn't defend me. Then I learned. Silence is only painful when it's filled with things unsaid. Today, it was just peace. I stopped at the corner, looking up at the skyline. My father's building stood tall, mirrored glass catching the late afternoon light. They didn't look like monuments anymore. They looked like promises kept. I took a breath and whispered to the sky, "Dad, I kept your promise. I didn't fight them with anger. I fought them with truth. And truth always wins slow."